What is good, my beautiful people? I just want to give some context on the video you guys are about to watch. The first part of this video was about reframing and changing your perspective on what the ego is and how to kind of conceptualize it to help you understand how to navigate it better. And then the second half of the video is about how your physical reality is a direct result of your emotional state. And if you want to change your physical reality, you need to learn how to change your emotional state. So I go into a few steps of how to do that. And I use things like meditation, visualization, all that type of stuff. And you will understand all that if you watch the video. But I wanted to make this because I advise each and every one of you to take notes. You don't have to, right? I've learned some of this from not taking notes, but when I did start taking notes, it helped me to understand this stuff and help it to stick way easier for me. So I advise you all to take notes. If you don't, I still appreciate you for being here anyway, and enjoy the video. You know what I've realized, right? I've realized that, how do I explain this? A lot of us have a false perception of what your ego is, right? I always try to break it down like this to people when I'm kind of trying to explain what your ego is. Your ego is your inner child. Your ego is your inner child, right? And here's the thing about your ego and your inner child. Your inner child can only operate through the five senses. So it can only operate through what you can touch, what you can see, what you can smell, what you can hear, and what you can taste, right? That's the only way it can operate. So that's why so much anxiety for the future comes from our ego being so rooted in only getting the only evidence the ego has is what has been done to us in the past, right? So because it bases our life, it bases the future off of our past. That's why we have so much anxiety about the future, right? Because the ego, it always needs to have this sense of control over like, oh, it needs to go this way, or dang, I don't want it to happen like this, or it's just a lot of thinking. It's a lot of just doing a lot, right? I really like the concept of your ego being your inner child, because then it's not about having an ego death, it's about having an ego shift. You need to learn how to mend that relationship, because your inner child has been hurt, it's been neglected, maybe it's been abused, all these things that have happened to us when we were younger. And when you never deal with it, all we do is store that pain and those limiting beliefs and that trauma, and we store all that in our subconscious, right? And that's what your ego uses to operate, right? And that's why it expresses itself in so many unhealthy ways in our physical reality. And a lot of us try to heal by changing our physical reality, not realizing if you don't get to the root within yourself, you're always going to have those same cycles over and over and over. It's just going to come out in different ways or with different people, right? So think of it like this. Think of it like this. Your ego is your inner child. If this doesn't make sense, please let me know. This is deep. Think of it like this. Your ego is your inner child and your spirit is your inner parent. So it's not about having an ego death. It's not about killing your inner child. It's about tapping into the spirit and allowing that to guide your ego. Because remember, the spirit does not come out through our physical reality. That's where the ego dwells. The spirit is in a whole different, it's not what we can see. It's something that you have to trust in within yourself, right? So when you tap into the spirit and you allow the spirit to guide your ego, man, it changes everything. And here's the thing about it, right? Let's say a kid grew up in a really abusive household, right? And they grew up old, and they got older and older and more mature. When that kid reaches 18, 19, they're not going to want to be around the parents that abused them, because they're like, I'm going to guard myself. I'm going to protect myself, right? So let's say those parents wanted to have a relationship with their kid. They wanted to heal that relationship with their kid. Do you think that it would just happen like that? Or would it take a lot of time, energy, consistency, and commitment and effort to mend that relationship? That's how you have to think about it when you become aware of the limiting beliefs and all the things that have happened to you that you weren't aware of, and you want to heal your inner child now, right? When you become aware that your inner child has been dictating everything you've been doing, and it's hurt, it's been neglected, it's been abused, now you have to actively work at mending that relationship, at healing that inner child. Now here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. You have to view your inner child like it's learning how to ride a bike for the first time. So understand this: every time you have a limiting belief, every time you have certain negative cycles, anytime you have really, really negative thoughts or you fall into negative emotional loops, understand that is your ego, that is your inner child expressing itself. Because what does a child do that's hurt? Hold on, yo. What does a kid do when it's been hurt, neglected, abused, and not shown care and love? It closes itself off and then it goes into fight or flight. And now it's going to do everything and anything to protect itself from not being hurt, right? And usually the way that it protects itself is not healthy, right? It closes off, it puts up walls, and those same walls that it puts up to protect it also become prisons that keep it closed off, right? So when you become aware of that's the state your inner child is in, it's not about killing your ego. It's not about killing your inner child. It's about understanding, I have to move into the role of the parent and understand that all these negative things that come up in my life are just my ego, and I need to have compassion and empathy for myself so I can heal that relationship. If you go into this path of wanting to be better, of wanting to change, and every time you make a mistake, every time you mess up, every time you fall back into a negative loop, you beat yourself up, you fall into shame, you fall into guilt, you're literally allowing your ego to drive the vehicle, and also you're stunting your growth. You're not helping yourself at all. Right? Because like I said, view your ego, view your inner child as a kid trying to learn how to ride a bike. If I'm a kid and I'm trying to learn how to ride a bike, and the first time I get on the bike and I fall off, which is normal, my mom or my dad starts yelling at me and beating on me and saying, "You're no good, you'll never be good enough." I'm never going to want to get back on that bike. And I'm going to do everything in my power to protect myself from that experience, which means I'm going to stay away from the bike, and I'm going to guard myself from my parents and really try to be it ain't going to work. It's the same when you're healing your inner child. If you start going on this journey and you don't have the awareness and perspective that, okay, I'm moving into the parent role and I have to guide my inner child, I have to mend that relationship, I have to heal that relationship, which takes compassion and empathy. If you don't move into that mind frame, you're going to constantly beat yourself and shame yourself and guilt yourself into being stuck in a position that you don't want to be in anymore. Right? You don't want to be in it anymore. Now, I'm going to stop right there and let you guys kind of comment and let me hear your thoughts. Yes, Leah. Shout out to Leah, man. You to go. Always speak to yourself like you were talking to your 10-year-old self. That's beautiful. It's so true. Because that's where compassion comes from. You have to have compassion for yourself along this journey, or you'll never truly grow into the person you were meant to be. Right? And you have to understand that you're not your negative beliefs. You're not your limiting thoughts. You're not your negative cycles. You're not the, low vibrating emotions that have been dictating your life. No, you're the awareness behind it all. And you get to dictate either the inner child or the inner parent, which one is going to be in the driver's seat, which one is going to drive your vehicle, right? Which one is going to drive your vehicle? That's why awareness is the most important thing, because you cannot change something that you're not aware of. You cannot change something you are not aware of. Heal an anxious attachment. I'm not even that clear on what an anxious attachment is. I'm about to look it up. But I know when it comes to attachments, we can get into that. Because what is a kid? Yo, I'm gonna break this down, right? Remember, your ego is your inner child. That's the best mind frame. When I learned that, that's the easiest way it helped me to conceptualize what was going on and to start making the necessary changes in my life to heal it, right? So think of your ego as your inner child, right? When you're a kid, you're not at a maturity level where you understand the things that are for you, the things that aren't, how some things are good, whatever it is, you don't understand that. So you try to latch on to everything as a kid. I want this, mommy. I want this, daddy. I want this. I want this. I want that. I want this. You're just trying to grab on everything because you think you need all this stuff as a kid, right? It's not until you grow up and you mature and you're taught that, hey, you don't need everything. You don't need to attach yourself to everything. You need to, So, yeah, I can't multitask. What do you mean by your ego being your inner child? I mean, if you know how people say, like, you can't allow your ego to, blind you or cloud your judgment or dictate everything you do in your life. Yeah, when you're allowing your ego to dictate everything you do, you're allowing your unhealed inner child to dictate everything you do, right? Because if you look at the look at the characteristics that are tied to ego, that's the same characteristics that will be tied to a little kid who has been hurt, neglected, not loved, not cared for, never tended to, right? Never tended to. A kid who's not loved and feels like he's been neglected or she's been neglected, they're going to put up these protective walls to guard that, to guard themselves, to take care of themselves, right? They're going to make sure that everything that they get, they keep close. They keep close to them. I can't let go of this thing because this is all I have, right? But a kid that's truly loved, they're not so quick to attach themselves. All they really care about is the love that they're getting from their mother and their father, right? They feel comfortable being able to express themselves and grow into the person that they were meant to be. They feel comfortable being able to try new things and then let go of things and try other things, right? But a kid who's been neglected and not loved, been abused, been traumatized, all these different things, a lot of them turn out to be people who attach themselves to everything external as a form of security, which really comes from a place of insecurity within yourself. I hope that makes sense, right? Any attachment in your life is coming from a place of insecurity within yourself. You just have to figure out what the root is, right? Because usually everything that you're doing externally is the result of something going on internally, right? And yes, Leah, shout out to Leah, because if you guys want like the whole realm and spectrum and all this stuff, go to Leah, because she's the GOAT at this stuff. I just kind of I just speak from like a broad term, but she actually studying this stuff. So shout out to Leah on that. But I hope that makes sense, right? So, when you become aware of these things, right, and this is where it's so tough, right? This is why I say your emotional state literally equals your physical reality. What do I mean by that? The emotions that you allow to drive your vehicle on an everyday basis. Literally, all that emotion, all the emotional state, the energy and emotion within yourself, literally expresses itself through our physical habits, our physical actions, who we be around, what we talk about, the thoughts that run wild in our mind. So here's a prime example. If you are a person who has never healed, has never even become aware that you have all these things blocking you, and you're rooted in shame, you're rooted in guilt, you're rooted in regret, you're rooted in lack, you're rooted in scarcity, you have a very negative perspective on life, you always see the worst in things, right? That's because you're in the emotional state of those things. Like that is your baseline emotional state. And that's what reflects out into your physical reality. So what most people do is when they don't like something in their physical reality, they try to change it with something in their physical reality. Right? Oh, I just have to work harder physically, or oh, I just have to find a different person, or I just have to do a different habit, or I just have to get away from this thing. But if you never heal the root of why you're doing that thing in the first place, it doesn't matter where you go. Slowly over time, you're going to fall back into that negative cycle, or it's going to be incredibly difficult to not fall back into old habits. It's going to be incredibly difficult. It's going to feel like a struggle. It's going to feel like a grind every single day, right? Take alcoholism, for example, right? You take an alcoholic and you put them into AA or you put them into rehab and you take them away from the drink, right? When they're in a secluded environment, right, it might seem like they're getting better and they're doing well. Yeah, because they have zero access to alcohol. If when they're in that environment, they're not really getting to the root of why they're alcoholic, they're not healing and really getting to the root of it, the inner child, the abuse, the trauma, the neglect, all that stuff, the emotional state. If they're not healing that stuff and they're kind of just putting a band-aid on it, the moment you put that person back into the real world and they get around it and stuff, they relapse, right? They might go a few months not touching it, but it's a grind. I mean, they're struggling every day. It's constantly consuming their thoughts and constantly consuming their mind. They're thinking about it all the time, right? Exactly. Avoidance. That's all it is. And then eventually, because it's so much energy and effort to fight this thing, you just give in. And you say, damn, I guess this is just my life. No, it's not. You just never got to the root of why you were doing that external thing in the first place. Because remember, everything externally in your life is a direct result of your internal environment. So if you want to change something in your external environment, it's not about looking at your external environment and trying to always change that. It's about getting to the root of why you're doing those things externally and changing it internally, and watch it change externally. Prime example. Raises the question, can you heal in a relationship, or you must be fully... Nah. I think you can heal in a relationship, because if you have two aware individuals that understand this stuff on somewhat of a deeper level. Like, you don't have to be fully healed, and you can still have a lot of, yeah, exactly. You're never healed. Exactly. You don't have to be full. You don't get fully healed. That's the first thing, right? There's no such thing as you just reach a point and you're done, right? That just doesn't happen. Healing is a journey, and healing isn't linear, as you know, Leah. Shout out to Leah. But I think if you have two individuals that are aware and they're committed to each other, you can heal together, right? You can heal together. But that's where a lot of people get into traps, man. Like, prime example, right? Let's say you keep attracting a certain type of man or woman into your life, right? You keep attracting a certain type of man and woman into your life. What happens over time is you keep getting in relationships where you keep getting taken advantage of. Maybe you keep getting cheated on. Maybe they're abusive. Maybe they're not as emotionally intelligent. They're not able to nurture you in an emotional way. They're not able to be emotionally stable, right? And you keep attracting these type of men or women into your life, just in different bodies, right? And it comes out in different ways. Two things start to happen. Either you start to become resentful towards the other sex, right? All men are trash or all women are trash. Or you take that as a direct result of your self-worth. So you say, I guess I'm just not good enough for the love that I want. So I guess I just have to accept what I've been getting. So I'm going to stay in a relationship where I'm clearly not getting valued the way I need to get valued, where I'm clearly getting abused emotionally or physically, whatever it may be, where they clearly don't care about me in the way that I want them to care about me, right? But because my level of self-worth is so low, because I've been judging my self-worth off of what I've been getting externally, I'm going to stay in that relationship. It's familiar territory. And guess what? Your ego wants to stay in what's known in your physical reality. That's what your inner child wants to do, because it needs to know. And even though it might be incredibly painful to stay in that relationship, at least you know what to expect. And your ego just wants to know what to expect. It wants the comfort of being in an environment that's known, even if that means you're still being hurt and it's causing a lot of pain, it's causing a lot of heartbreak. At least I know. And when you want to change, what do you have to do? You have to step from the known into the unknown. And guess what? Your ego doesn't want to do that. But remember, we're not moving with we're not allowing our inner child and our ego to drive our vehicle. We're allowing our spirit and our inner our inner parent to drive our vehicle. And that's where God works, right? That's when you put God in the driver's seat, for real. That's when God starts to work through you. When you move from operating in your ego, your flesh, that's what that means, your inner child, to the spirit, right? That's where you allow God to work, right? A lot of us don't realize the reason that things aren't happening in our external world the way that we want them to is because we're allowing our ego to drive our vehicle. And when your ego is constantly driving your vehicle and driving your life, you are literally blocking off the things that you want to see happen in your life without even realizing it. And that's why I'm going to go back to it. Awareness is the most important part, because if you're not aware you're doing that, you're going to always think the problem is in the external world. If the problem is just all this stuff, right? Or I'm just not good enough. I guess it's just for only a certain amount of people or special people. I guess I'm just not blessed. False. You just have to do the inner work that nobody wants to do. It's the hardest thing in the world to do. The inner work is the hardest work in the world you have to do. Grant, I appreciate you, my brother. Thank you for watching. The inner work is the hardest thing in the world you have to do. Right? Facing your emotions, facing your negative thoughts, that's the hardest thing in the world to do. Right? So what do we not do? We don't do it. And we start to fall into this rat race of chasing after all the healing and trying to fill the void in all the external world. And we keep getting down these negative cycles over and over and over and over again. I hope that's making sense. The inner work is changing your emotional state. The inner work is changing your emotional state and your mental state. I always start with emotional state, because when you change your emotional state, it's gonna be reflective in the thoughts that you start thinking more. Right? The thoughts you start giving energy to. Here's a prime example. Right? Where your focus goes, energy follows. Understand me. Where your focus goes, energy follows. So, understanding that emotions are energy in motion, whatever your emotional state is, that's what the energy and motion inside of your body is cultivating, right? And that's going to be a direct result of what you give attention to and focus to in your physical reality and in your mind, right? So if you're in a very negative emotional state, very low vibrational emotional state, what type of thoughts do you think you're going to give more focus and energy to? The negative ones. Let me draw this out for y'all, right? I'm going to let that marinate. And I'm going to draw it out. So, nope, I'm drawing this out the wrong way. I got y'all. I hope that's making sense. You got positive. What's the neutral sign? I'm bugging right now. Positive, negative, and what's the neutral sign? Am I tweaking? Let me look it up. I got my computer right here. I feel like I should know this. Like, absolutely, Fran. And I'm gonna explain that in a way in a second. Nah, that ain't. It's a. Okay, yeah. All right, we just gonna do this. Right. So you have positive, neutral, and negative, right? So depending on your emotional state. So, depending on your emotional state, that is where the energy is gonna go, right? That's where the energy is gonna go. So, if you have a very low vibrational emotional state, let's say you are constantly in the state of lack, scarcity, regret, shame, guilt, right? That is going to reflect itself in negative thinking, right? I hope that makes sense. It's going to reflect itself in negative thinking. Because since that's the energy that you're cultivating within yourself, your focus, so this is focus. I can't spell, but it's okay. Your focus is going to be placed on the negative thoughts more. Because remember, your emotional state is the most important thing. So if your emotional state is shame, guilt, lack, regret, low self-worth, low self-confidence, scarcity, fear, right? You're literally going to start focusing more on the negative thoughts, and where your focus goes, energy follows. So those negative thoughts grow and grow and grow and grow, and it becomes harder and harder and harder to not think negative, right? And what do? We try harder to not think negative rather than getting to the root of why we're even thinking that way, right? And then we just feel like, oh, this is just my reality. I guess I've been trying so hard to think about positive things, I just can't. I promise you it's going to be hard to think positive if you don't change your emotional state. If you don't change your emotional state, I promise you it's going to be harder to think different, right? Because if you're still rooted in fear, how are you ever going to be start thinking more about abundant thoughts, more loving thoughts, but you're still rooted in fear and guilt and shame? It ain't going to work. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And I love this because it's also showing me, I definitely felt like I had a better representation of that. And it definitely didn't come out the way I didn't, but it's okay. How do you get to the roots? I love that you asked that. It starts with one thing. I mentioned this in a live the other day about the steps to changing your emotional state. Let's go through them. The first. It's called the 2 A's. It's called the 2 A's. The first step to changing your emotional state, to get into the root of the problem. Awareness and acceptance. Awareness and acceptance. You have to first become aware of the emotional state. And then you have to accept that right now this is currently what the reality of my situation is. You have to accept it. If you don't accept it, you're never going to heal it. If you're not aware of it, you can never change it. So the first step is awareness and acceptance. Well, how do I become aware? I'm glad you asked. Relax, you're going to get some. So, the only way to become aware is to literally press the pause button on your life. If you are constantly on your phone, constantly on social media looking at what everybody else is doing, constantly running around, constantly working, constantly focused on external, constantly doing this, doing that, constantly around people, constantly watching TV, when are you ever giving yourself space to become aware of what's actually going on within yourself? You need stillness. If you want awareness and acceptance, you need to learn how to become still. Now, still does not mean still internally. Still does not mean still internally. It means still externally. Tom is getting back on the podcast December 30th. He's just been really busy. But let me explain that. Write this down if you need to write it down. Write this down if you need to write it down. Stillness does not mean internal stillness where you're not thinking anything and you feel complete peace. No. The stillness I'm talking about is literally pressing the brakes on your life and just sitting with yourself. Right? Sitting with yourself. Now, the best thing that I've found to help you with that is meditation. Meditation is just the act of becoming aware. So literally, you can spend 1 minute a day if you've never meditated before. And this will show you. If 1 minute is hard to do, that is a very, very, very good indication that you need to keep doing it. Because if you cannot sit with yourself with your eyes closed without any phone, any external distractions for 1 minute and not get up and move, that's how you know there's something going on that we need to start giving some energy to. And I speak from experience. There was a time where I tried to close my eyes and I couldn't even do it for 30 seconds. And that's when I knew something was wrong. Something was not right within myself. If I could not sit and just be for 30 seconds, we got some real work to do, right? So that's why I always tell people, meditation is the best thing you can do as far as becoming aware of your emotional state and learning how to navigate through it. Because a lot of times, based off of our emotional state, that is what drives our vehicle. So this is a prime example too. When you first start to meditate, if you close your eyes, I don't need you to sit like this. Just literally sit in a chair like this. Just sit in a chair like this. No phone, no music, no nothing. Just sit in a chair like this. Put a timer for 1 minute on your phone and just close your eyes. What's going to happen is your thoughts are going to start running wild. Your emotions are going to start coming up, right? And your first reaction is going to be, nope, I can't do this. I got to get up. I got to grab my phone. Oh, I got to go get food. There's no way I can do this. And then you say, meditation just isn't for me. I can't sit still. I can't. You're just reaffirming. You're showing your ego that it was right. See, I told you couldn't sit still and meditate, and now you're never going to do it. You have to be willing to embrace discomfort, and you have to be willing to show your emotions and your thoughts that they're not in the driver's seat anymore. Because remember, you're parenting the kid. You have to show the kid that, hey, I'm in control. I'm going to help guide you, but you're not in control. Every time you allow your emotions to dictate what you do physically, your ego and your inner child have taken over the steering wheel. They're the ones in control. So this is how meditation can truly transform your life. When you close your eyes and you sit there, and in that first minute, right, your emotions come up and you want to go grab your phone. You want to get up and walk. You want to get up and open your eyes and get away. And you don't. You stay stuck and you say, no, I'm not moving. I'm keeping my eyes closed. And I'm going to sit here through this minute, right? And then you do that the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And you just keep building. And then the next week you move up to 3 minutes. And you build on that. You build on that. And then you move up to 5 minutes. You build on that. What you're doing subconsciously is you're subconsciously taking the power away from your thoughts and emotions that used to drive everything that you do. So now when your thoughts and your emotions say, hey, get up and go grab your phone, you say, no, I'm going to sit here and we're going to figure this out. And what happens to a kid when it realizes it's not getting its way over a long period of time? Eventually all the crying and the yelling and the throwing the fit, eventually that stops because the kid's like, this isn't getting me nowhere. But if every time a kid throws a fit, you give them what they want immediately, you're not teaching them discipline. You're not teaching them emotional maturity. It is the same with our emotional state. When you close your eyes and you just sit with yourself, y'all, and your first reaction or thought is to get up and do something, and you say, no, we're going to sit here, you are literally slowly taking the power away from those thoughts and emotions. And that's how the reverse engineering starts. That is the first step. So you have to first become aware. Then you have to accept, right? Awareness and acceptance. You have to accept this is my emotional state right now. So I've accepted it. So now that I've accepted it, I know that every time I sit down for the first few weeks, it's going to be incredibly uncomfortable. It's going to be incredibly painful to do internally. And I'm going to want to grab everything in a mama around me to get out of this feeling, to not face these emotions and thoughts. But you sit there and you say, no, I'm committed to the growth. So I'm going to sit there over time. All right? Let me add that to step 2. Is this making sense? If you guys are still with me, is it making sense? If it's not, please let me know. We can figure something out. Okay? So, the first step, right, is become aware of your emotional state and accept it, right? This is the reality, right? Then, through meditation, hold on. Okay. So, like I said, first step, you have to become aware of your emotional state, then you have to accept it. This is the reality of my situation. Acceptance does not mean, oh, this is my reality, I'm done, I can't do it. No, acceptance is saying this is where I'm at, right? I'm accepting where I'm at with the goal to grow through it, right? Then 2, you have to start taking your power back. You start taking your power back by sitting with yourself, right? I like to use meditation because it's very simple, very easy. There is no right way to meditate. It's just sitting with yourself. You can do it with your eyes open. Just don't have anything stimulating you externally. You just need to literally be. That's all you need to do is just sit. You don't have to focus on controlling your thoughts or having a clear mind or controlling nothing. You're not trying to control anything. You're just sitting. That's it. And becoming aware. Now, number 2 is taking your power back. After you start to sit and you do this over a consistent period of time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, you're slowly taking your power back. And you don't need to do it for 30 minutes to an hour. You can start with 1 minute a day. 1 minute a day, y'all. If you really want to change and heal, 1 minute a day, you'll do it. I promise you. Because when I was in and out of the hospital and I said I got to change, I was doing 30 minutes to an hour a day. And I swear on everything I love. Like I was sitting there just facing these demons. I swear to everything, right? But you can start with 1 minute. And then after that becomes comfortable, you move to 3 minutes. And then you move to 5 minutes. And you just keep on taking your power back. Now, the third step, this is important, right? Because you just need to focus. The 1 and 2 steps, let's get there first. I'm going to write the third step in a different color because this is really where the shift happens. Now, after you feel genuinely like you have really slowly taken your power back. Now, it don't need to be all of it, but you feel like a sense of control. Like, man, like the emotions and thoughts don't have as much power over me. I've really been working through this through my meditation, right? The third step. Now you need to take a pencil and a paper, and you need to write out your vision for a desired reality. What type of life do you want to live, and what are the emotions attached to it, right? So, I'm going to just put visualize. Visualize. Alright, so we'll get into the testimony later, y'all, but I can't bounce around because I'm not a good multitasker. But listen, so you need to visualize your desired reality. How do you do that? What is my desired reality? Like I said, you take a pencil and you take a piece of paper, and on one side you put physical, and on the other side you put, matter of fact, listen, I'm about to do this joint right here. So this is your desired reality right here. You put physical on one side, you put emotional on the other, right? What in your desired reality would you be doing physically? Anything, and don't limit yourself. It could be anything, right? You could say traveling. Travel. You can say aligned career, like you're working a job where you feel like it's aligned, right? So aligned job. I know my handwriting is trash right now, but just stick with me. Aligned job. You can say, what else can you say physically? Good health, right? Just to name a few. You can get very, this is where your imagination and your creative power comes in. Have fun with this. Create a life that you genuinely want to live. Do not limit yourself. Every time you feel like there is a limit, that is just your ego and your inner child. So you move it into the passenger seat and you expand. Now, emotional. This is important. If you were living that life now, what emotions would you be feeling on an everyday basis? So let's say you were doing everything that you wanted to do right now. What would you be feeling like on an everyday basis? I'll put a few. You'd be feeling grateful. You'd be feeling excited for life. You'd be feeling abundant, right? You'd feel like you're in a state of love. You'd be feeling love for life, right? Just to name a few, right? You can do any emotions that you want, that you feel like would be connected. Now, are you guys still with me? I'm going to stop right there before we move on to this next point. You guys are still with me. Thank you. If you're just now joining, I low-key apologize because I know we pretty deep in and y'all probably like, what the heck we talking about? But we ain't going back. And I'm recording this with my camera, so I'm going to post this on YouTube. So you can watch it on YouTube. On my personal. I just want to make sure everybody with me, right? Okay. Let me, I just need to get the music back. I hope this is making sense. One sec. Okay, so. And if you want to do this now, do it now. I'm dead serious because this stuff really helps. So, your desired reality is the life you want to live physically and the emotions you want to embody daily. That is what your desired reality is. Now, that's why step 3 is visualize desired reality. Now, after your meditations, after you have put, a good amount of weeks together and you really genuinely feel like you are taking your power back from the thoughts and emotions that want you to dictate everything that you were doing, now start every meditation by becoming aware, right? Same thing you're doing. You do your little 5 to 10 minute meditation. And then I need you to dedicate the next 5 minutes to literally visualizing what it would be like if you were living that reality now. What would it be like if you were living this desired reality right now? And your visualization practice is where you can have fun in your mind. Literally let your mind go crazy. Just think of yourself traveling the world and doing amazing things, working with amazing people, having a healthy family, being fit. Whatever you want in your desired reality, have fun with this. And you sit there with your eyes closed and you just let your mind just go to all these amazing places, right? And like I said, just with anything, when you first start out, it's going to be incredibly uncomfortable, right? And it's going to be incredibly difficult at first. That's what's going to happen. When you try to visualize a life that you genuinely want to live, your ego is just going to resort to everything that you've experienced in the past, and it's going to tell you why you can't do that. All you have to do is just keep on doing it. Keep on doing it. Keep on doing it. And then this, number 4, reframe and replace. This is where you have to bring awareness and consciousness to everything that you're doing. Intention to everything that you do on an everyday basis. Because when your eyes are open and you're going about your business and you're living your life, whatever it is, it's normal for you to have those limiting beliefs. It's normal for you to have those negative thoughts. It's normal for you to have those negative emotional cycles. But you have to keep the awareness and become aware of when you're doing that. And then you need to immediately reframe and replace with an emotion or a thought that's aligned with your desired reality. Does that make sense? So these are the steps right here. I'm going to put this up on the camera so you can see. These are the steps. 1, you need to become aware and you need to accept. 2, you need to start taking your power back. 3, you need to visualize your desired reality and write this out. And then 4, you need to start practicing reframing and replacing. Now, like I said, I'm going to post this video on YouTube. I promise you, I'm going to post this video on YouTube so you can go back to it on my personal and rewatch it if you want to know what all this is about. But for everybody that's kind of stuck this through, does that make sense? And then I'm going to touch on one last thing. That makes sense. Okay. I appreciate y'all. Shout out to y'all, man. This is incredibly important for you to understand going into this journey. 2 things. One. 2. What was the second? I just lost it. I just lost the second one. Hold on, I'm gonna get it back. Oh, yes. I got it. Okay. These are 2 very important things you need to understand when you start diving into this stuff and start really trying to change your emotional state. The first, good things take time. Good things take time. And the second is progression over perfection. Let's break down the first. Good things take time. You need to understand it's going to be a process in order for you to change your emotional state. It's going to have to take time. And you have to give yourself the patience, compassion, and empathy to go through that process, right? And then the second is just as important as the first. Progression over perfection. It is not about doing everything perfect. It's not about going on this journey and then getting to a place where you never have any limiting beliefs or you never have a negative thought or doubt never creeps in or fear never creeps in. No, it's about progressing to a point to where you have such a high level of awareness and you have practiced it so much that the moment those things that aren't aligned with your desired reality come up, you immediately reframe and replace it like that. And it's easy to you, right? It's easy to you because you're so emotionally connected to your desired reality now, and that is your emotional state, that when those thoughts that aren't aligned with that come up, you know it's not aligned and you move it out the way. When you first start out, it's going to be incredibly difficult because you're still going to be in the emotional state of the past. That's not easy to do. So you have to give yourself grace and compassion when you start this journey, because it is going to take you down a loop and you are going to mess up sometimes. You're going to have days where you feel like, man, I was completely negative or I had the worst perspective. It's okay. Remember, you are parenting your inner child now. You have moved out of the seat of your ego because you become aware, and now you're in the seat of a parent. Parent your child now. When it makes a mistake, don't beat it up. Don't be so quick to judge it. Don't try to put shame and guilt on it. Help it navigate that. And eventually it will grow old, it will develop, it will mature, and it will become a lot easier to sustain itself. I hope that makes sense. I really do. And when I really started to embody this stuff and it became very clear and I started to see my literal physical reality change in front of me because of this stuff, I mean, it's one of the most fulfilling things in life, because you realize, oh, I don't have to go anywhere to heal. Right? You're not going to find the healing in something external. It's already here. It's just about us cultivating it. It's about us having the courage to face the things that we've been running from for so long. And that's a very, very, very incredibly difficult thing to do, but I promise you, you can do it. The moment you were born, you were equipped with everything that you needed in order to do that change. in order to do that transformation. Because remember, your emotional state is comprised of your emotions, which are energy in motion. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So it's not about, oh, I got to destroy these negative thoughts and I got to create new ones. You're not creating anything. All you're doing is taking the same energy that's been expressing itself so negatively in your life, and you're working on changing it so it starts expressing itself positively through your thoughts, through your habits, through the way that you talk, through the people that you vibe with. I hope that makes sense. And that's where we're going to end today's session on emotional state. So going back to how all this started. I hope that makes sense. So going back to how all this started, right? I started the live off with this. Your emotional state equals your physical reality. Your emotional state equals your physical reality. Now, if you're new, that might not make sense to you, but when I upload this on YouTube, which I'm going to try, I'm not even going to lie, I'm going to go home, put it up. I'm not going to do no crazy edits either. I'm just going to take it, put it in, and then upload it. I'm going to try to upload it by tomorrow. You will watch the video and you will understand what that means. For everybody that stuck it out, does that make sense now? Do you have a little bit more clarity on what I mean about changing your emotion state, how your emotional state literally influences and creates your physical reality? Does that make sense? All I needed was one yes. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. That's it. Because if one person can get this, that's all I care about. Because I was that one person that got it when I was watching the people I watched. So, yeah. And I'm happy it's 51 minutes. Beautiful. I'm going to start doing this too. I'm going to start recording my lives and posting them. I'm going to start recording my lives and posting them. Because I've been going live recently a lot, and the lives have been going crazy with y'all. I love y'all so much, man. The energy we've been cultivating is crazy. So I'm like, I got to start recording this and putting it out there, because this stuff has changed my life. That was a lot. That was a lot. I'm getting a little better at teaching this stuff. I'm getting a little better at it. You know, it's still kind of fresh in my mind. I'm trying to learn how to word it in the right way, but we're getting there. You feel me? We're getting there. So